I'd like to welcome you to the September 20th City Council meeting. Roll call of officers. I'm going to do a little different. We're going to start with Debbie Cragen, City Clerk Treasurer, Community Service Director Roger Krieger, Council Member Jason Upchurch, Dee Cragen by phone, Heather Newsom by phone, Caleb Stapp, Naomi Diaz. I'll ask at this time we stand for the invocation and then remain standing for Pledge of Allegiance. David, Pastor, you have it.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for the amazing privilege of being able to get together and express opinions and work back and forth for the public good. Lord, thank you that you give us that blessing. And we ask that you would give the ones who have to make decisions or make presentations or who are here to speak their opinion, we ask that you would give them the grace to present theirs well, Lord, with confidence and clarity, and then give all of us the ability to listen well. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Okay, item 4, approval of agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All in favor? On the phone?
Aye.
Yep. Motion carried. Item 5, approval of August 16th, 2023 regular council meeting minutes.
I move we approve.
Motion to approve.
Okay, second. We have motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. Motion carried. Item 6, public hearing. Annexation file number 2022-1, proposal to annex 167 acres into the city of Deer Park, Lakeside. How many people are here for the hearing? Okay. So we'll close the regular council meeting and go to a public hearing. Try and keep your comments to 3 minutes, please, and then just give your name and your address. So, just some hands. Go ahead, Mr. Linus.
Jim Leonis, some of you know me. I was the pastor down here at Gilbert Church for a number of years, so you know I can be long-winded. 3 minutes is kind of short, but I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity to present tonight. My wife Michelle here is with me. We live at 33925 North Dalton Road. I want to thank Lakeside and Bill for reaching out to us, the property owners. I would say one concern was that it's been in the process for well over a year. Council got it about a year ago. This is the first invitation from the city to discuss this issue, but Lakeside has been going back and forth with us for almost a year now, so I really do appreciate that. I know this annexation is going to go through, and good and bad is going to go through. I just want to be on the record for a couple of things. A lot of numbers were suggested at the first council meeting when this was brought up. I heard about it word of mouth, and I came forward so I could hear what was going on. A couple things I want to point out. Well decommissioning, which has to happen as per Washington State requirements. So I went to H2O for a quote. That quote last year was $6,708 and some change just to decommission my well. I went to Shaw Plumbing. They couldn't give me a written estimate for it, for the cost to connect all the connection stuff, because there are too many variables that they didn't know at this point in time. But they told me the cheapest route is to reverse the plumbing, meaning jackhammering the floor in my basement, running everything out the front where it goes out back to the floor. And that would cost me about $12,500, for my wife and I, about $12,500 to reverse the plumbing. I know there are cheaper options out there. I've just thrown that out there. I just wanted a number. Decommissioning the septic is fairly easy, between $500 and $1,000, depending upon how much sand it's going to take. So I'm looking at about $20,000 before we add the connection fees. And then I get to add about $150 a month in sewer, water, and garbage fees that I'm currently not paying. That said, again, thank you to Lakeside. They have offered to cover the bulk of the connection cost, and that will help a lot. I'm also looking forward to knowing that I have water when power is out, and then I can finally hook up a sprinkler system for my yard. That's going to be fairly nice, trying to see the positive in all these things. The other thing I wanted to address was simply that at the first meeting a year ago, I was a little anxious when I came to that meeting, And there was somebody in this room that stated at that point in time, people who did not want to be annexed should have moved by now. And I was a little concerned by that because it was a little unprofessional in my opinion. It was disrespectful, I thought, maybe even condescending, because some people might have the financial means to take up and move at the drop of a hat. Many of us do not. I would just ask you to remember that your decisions do impact the lives of people around here. And I hope that the elected and non-elected personnel in the city of Deer Park will keep that into consideration when you deal with people who are being told they suddenly have to pay to keep living in the homes that they're already established in. I do appreciate the opportunity again to speak, and I do thank people for the professionalism for the most part that I've experienced, and I look forward to being a part of Deer Park. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Next. Mr. Knapp.
So my name is Bill Knapp. I'm a Lakeside guy. Then, one thing first of all, we're going to pay everyone to connect to the sewer because this is the best group of residents we've ever dealt with. I haven't been yelled at. I haven't heard the F word. It's been unbelievable. The people here have been great. So that municipal fee for sewer will be effective. Roger, can you speak to what would actually trigger the well being decommissioned and having to hook the water? And my understanding is it won't be triggered unless you do a permitting action.
No, actually, under our ordinance, what it says is once the water service is available, we give them a notice, and they technically have 2 years with which to connect and to decommission the well. Wastewater is the same thing, although there's no wastewater system out in the street yet. But when that would occur, or through our development of North Colorado Avenue or your development, then that 2-year time frame would trigger that one.
Did that change?
Technically, in our ordinance right now, there's a provision in the code that would allow Mr. Alanis to apply to the city for a water use agreement and be allowed to connect to the public system because he's in our water service area, our urban growth area boundary, part of the retail service area, and the water main crosses right in front of him. It's on the opposite side of the road. He'd have to pay all those costs, but technically speaking, he could connect today. Well, after the agreement's in place.
Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Sharon Fiskus. I live at 1308 East Shoreline Court. I'm in the golf course neighborhood. My concern really is different because I live in a cul-de-sac and my backyard backs up to your property. So my understanding, I'm new to Deer Park, only 3 years there. So my understanding is that there's going to be a housing development. So I guess my question would be the time frame. Is there any thought on when that might happen? I don't know who to ask.
Yeah, I think for us, as we look into this, we found this project because we looked at the golf course and infrastructure issues. We were like, that northwest corner would benefit from roads and sewer, especially crossing over the Dalton up to 12. That's how we got to look at this and realize, oh, this could be annexed in. And but the timeline is actually quite long. So if we approve tonight, we'd be 2 years at least of planning. And somewhere around 2025, the city's going to start on Colville Road. They're already done and improving up to that point. We would like to, in 2 years, have a plan figured out so that we can connect right then, right? If we connected then, you're 2025, you're done by 2026. Maybe a house goes in along Dalton, and now we call Bill, in 2027. Let's say you do a phase a year, and that's 20 houses a year, 25 maybe. We're still building houses. We're probably not to your cul-de-sac until 2035. We're probably done in 2037 to 2038.
And how many homes are we talking about?
Per acre, 10,000 square foot minimum, so it's not dense. That's why we're here. It's a great opportunity. We have access on the east, access on the west, a big space in the middle to make a labor community, and provide jobs for 15 years.
Is there going to be any other interests besides Schultz Street?
Dalton. No, Bill Road. So 12th Street will meander through, and exit, right around 11th Street probably, onto Dalton. So it's a almost 15-year process.
Next. Yes, sir.
I'm Delvin Tavares, and I'm on 34 213 North Dalton. And I'm strongly against this annex. For the life of me, I cannot see how Lakeside can come in. I've been in that land for what, 45 years or more? And they can just, all of a sudden, we gotta have a sewer line, so we all have to annex in. Well, why do we have to do that? It don't make any sense, but Deer Park, if you look around how many spots they got to build here, it's unbelievable to me. They got all that down south. They got that up by the Catholic Church. They got it clear to the airport. Why do they need any more? Why can't they just leave it alone?
Yeah. Next. Did you have a question? Okay. Yes, sir.
My name is Darold. We're 3211 West Olson Road, Deer Park. I'd like to know what you're going to be doing with all this water that you say that you have. We end up taking and putting in about one well from a farmer north of me, off of Olson Road, between that and Montgomery. Now you end up, 2 or 3 years ago, you went and pumped in another well. So, where's the study at on how much water is out there that you're taking from our community?
No, do you want to answer that?
And my next thing is, you took that water and you threw it down the ditch and brought it into Deer Park. You got stand-up things. From what I understand, there's a state ruling or federal ruling. When you done that, you were supposed to have fire hydrants put in. That was never done. And also too, on Olson Road, when you done that, also too, there's a 24-inch culvert that crossed over Olson Road. You never did put it back in. You tore it out and left it there. And I'd like to know when you're going to put that culvert back in. That's been, what, 15 years almost now? Has it been done? But I'd like to know where the study is at on how much water is there. And then you take, next thing is, you take and you, after you've done the first well, water from the farmer, you send letters out to us telling us to protect our wells and we're going to do this and that. What in the hell are these people thinking? Writing to us and telling us to take care of our wells. You're the one who should be taking care of your well. Right. We've been taking care of our wells for 43 years. Right. So, I'd like to have an answer.
Roger, you have an answer for that?
I wrote some of them down, so let me go backwards because I had that one. I got the aquifer protection. So, we as water purveyors in our area are required by Department of Health, in their infinite wisdom, to send out notices to people that fall within our water capture area of our wells. It's a requirement of state law that we get the privilege of sending out. And really, it's a public service message to say, everyone beware, because the aquifer is there for everyone, and one failure or one accident by a person anywhere within that capture area could affect us as well as all of you. So it's really notices that we're required to send out as a purveyor in the area. Your question about hydrants and culverts, that was a project built in 1985, which is way before my time. I mean, I've been here 32 years and it was in and operation and stuff like that. I can't tell you what agreements that were made from a hydrant standpoint, what agreements were made about your culvert, or not your culvert, but the Olson Road culvert, I guess. I don't know if you made contacts with people back then or not, so I really can't answer that and the hydrant issue. Typically, we're limited by the state on what we can do relative to fire hydrants or fire protections and making sure they're in our water area, our water service area, which Olson Road isn't in within that. And so, I don't know if the city had a problem with that back in '85 or not.
It was after 85, I'm sorry, but it was after 85.
Well, 85 was when it was built and put in, because it came in with the Crawford, or with the 6th Street Reservoir. I got here in 91, so it was already there. So that's what I can tell you from a timing standpoint. Water uses, so when the city and their development folks and their water committee back in the early 80s were talking about water rights, they acquired the Olson water right and the wells that are on that site. There was 2 wells there, and the water right was for a capacity of 1,600 gallons a minute, and it's so many maximum acre feet. I can't remember the number. We have used a portion of that water right for years and years and years, because both of those wells, when the city purchased them back in '85, they knew up front that the casings of them were only 12-inch casings. They knew there was going to be problems with those wells, and kind of what happened is they developed the first well, not the second, tied it into the system, and we used that well for several years. The problem that it has, it caused so much velocity through the screen, it would calcify, and every 3 or 4 years we'd have to go back out there and do a freezing action on it and brush it and all that kind of stuff. So these wells that are in now simply are given the beneficial use of the water right that the city purchased back then, and bringing that to town. So that those wells, coupled with the other 6 wells we have in town, all work to achieve the water use that we require. And later in one of the other documents, or things tonight, it's about our water comprehensive plan, and quite honestly, we're going to have more wells being drilled in order to deal with capacity issues, because we have 3 of them that do about 200 gallons a minute. So those guys are older wells, older producers that we have to get more out of the ground. That's the bottom line. But that's what I can tell you. I think I don't know if I got all your questions that you asked, but if I missed one, I mean,
Where's the study? How much water is in the aquifer?
how much is in the aquifer? Well,
there's going to be some kind of a study to be made to know how much water is running through an aquifer.
What I can tell you from our monitoring the water levels after all these years is they're not changing as it relates to where the water's at. As long as you're in the right vein of where the water is. I mean, our wells are only 50 feet deep. They're not deep water wells like majority of the private residential wells are out there. They're all in the deeper aquifer. We're actually drawn out of the upper aquifer. I can't give you a number on a study as far as what that aquifer will support. I just know most of the wells around us aren't in that one. Okay, we're in the high one. I guess that's the best I can give you for that.
And how deep is that well you have out there in the field?
50 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I say we're in the upper perched water aquifer, not in the deeper one where most other units are out there.
As you go back east, Olson Road, it gets deeper.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. Yeah, it varies. It gets deeper as you go south too. I mean, our Swinyard well is deeper than our ones out that way.
And just, the county came back, 15 years ago. They changed the ruling from 5 acres. It had to be sold in 10-acre plots because they didn't want that many buildings to be put in.
That was on a reaction to the wastewater side, on-lot septic system side, not necessarily from the water side.
I mean, we had owners that had 40 acres, and when they retired, they're going to sell them 5-acre parcels, but they didn't get
in time.
So here they are with four 10-acre parcels, and now you want to take and put more houses in, and but the county didn't want to happen. It's happening.
Well, the differences are, those residential units that will go in the city will all be connected to city sewer. So there's not any of the on-site septic tank systems that are going in out there. And our sewer system is sized to handle our urban growth population, which takes us up to about 7,500 people quite easily. Our water system, and that's again in this comp plan stuff that we'll talk about later, from a water rate standpoint, we're in really good shape for a lot of years, past the planning period of 25 to 30 years. We do have to have, like I said, more holes bringing water out of the ground, and probably more reservoirs. But all those houses that come in, we connect it to the public system as well. There won't be individual wells that are poking around in the ground. And so that comes from our distribution system, but what we draw out of the ground and supply, and then how we treat the wastewater, both of them. We're required to entertain an annexation at all to have that capacity in place to handle the infrastructure, or several meetings ago, we would have been obligated to tell the developer we can't go down this path because we don't have that, or developer, you need to expand our wastewater plant or our water system for us. So it's kind of where we're sitting. So.
Next. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm Laura Hoagland. I live at 1114 North Market Avenue. I'm already annexed in the city. I just came because I couldn't read your map to see exactly what was going on here. But I have a question for you. I live on the corner, near the corner of the Market and 11th, and you mentioned to this woman over here that it was at 11th and Colville. Is there a road that's going to go from 11th, which is a cul-de-sac, to Colville?
No, I don't.
Bill, let me answer that one.
Okay.
So the parcels that are in the county between North Dalton and Lenhart Addition are parcels that were added by the council through this whole process. So we didn't have that little island or peninsula that sticks down with streets and frontage and things like that. What our code says from the planning world, that if those lands ever develop further, purely optional, purely a choice of the owners of now or later, our ordinance requires the extension of a road that dead ends at a property line to continue on. So future, if those folks were to develop, I would say yes, more than likely a road would go from 11th out to Colville Avenue. The 11th that he's talking about is strictly east.
To the east,
yeah.
right.
Yeah. So it's all about if a developer wanted to and benefit their parcel potentially with more units to sell.
Okay. Because I've lived in my house 17 years, and you mentioned about 7,500 more homes, or 7,500 total.
Population.
When I moved here, it was less than 3,000.
2,500 when I got here.
Right. So my concern with all of this development is, you've got it south of the Adventist Church, you've got it behind the Catholic Church, you got it near the high school, you built a huge subdivision by my house, and the traffic is horrendous. Yeah. How are you guys dealing with it? Dealing with the schools? I mean, I used to be able to get to Deer Park to work. I work in Hilliard area. And 25 minutes. It takes me 45. It takes me almost 15 minutes to get through town. How are you guys dealing with this? Because it's like you're just rubber stamping all these developers coming through and saying, yep, you can buy this parcel, and you're not figuring how it's affecting the residents who live here.
So, as you can tell from the roadway improvement projects we've been doing over the last number of years, we have spent a lot of money at various intersections with roundabouts and improvements to get people through. Another element of the council has later in this council meeting is a document that was just recently finished, not to be acted on yet, but Our next task was figuring out the Main and Crawford intersection as what to do with that as traffic goes. The interesting thing is we have a AM and a PM peak hour traffic delay that's growing without a doubt. We all see it. And so the council's role and our role as staff is to try and address those things, which we've been doing. The council in 1996 or 7 is when we got into establishing urban growth area boundaries. And during that time, there was a lot of planning work done to figure out where we could potentially grow to, and we were allocated a certain amount of population in the county as how to deal with the growth. And honestly, we're doing what our comprehensive plan has said and what our development regulations have required us to do to put these developments in. So as they come in, each does a traffic analysis to say where the traffic's going to go. Bill and his group will get to do a full traffic analysis to figure out where these cars are going to go, where they're going to travel, and may have some more roadway work to do. Maybe they get to improve 8th Street all the way over to Main Avenue. It's hard to say that the traffic analysis.
My question is, just because they say, oh, you can do this, you can do this, do you have to do it?
Yep. This council and councils, again, since I've been here since 91, have been steadfast in developers. If you come in and you make impacts, you pay your way, all costs, okay? So just for an example, Dalton Creek down south you just mentioned, they got the privilege of improving Colville Avenue from where it ended all the way down to the city limits to develop those 2 subdivision streets that go up into their subdivision. And so this council's been pretty steadfast with that. Mountainview Meadows, that is going to be part of the golf course development, they get the privilege of chip sealing and improving Enoch Road to county standards across the county portion all the way out to Dalton Road when they get to that phase. And so, yeah, I would say our councils over the last number of years hasn't let anybody from a development standpoint not pay their way. And honestly, the councils haven't contributed towards that. We've been instructed to make sure they pay their way. And so the developers get to do that or not.
Well, it just seems to me like the developers have such a say-so, and the average citizen has nothing.
Our job.
And it breaks my heart because Deer Park has been, for 17 years I've lived here. And it's like, I'm near retirement age and I'm like, I don't know if I want to stay here because of how the city has changed and not for the better.
I get it.
Not for the better. And I've heard this from other people. They're like, they're just rubber stamping these developers. And it's not, there's progression and there's processes, but it's like you guys, this is only my second city council meeting I've been to in 17 years. But it was important to me to say this because you guys are just rubber stamping. And it's been over 3 minutes, but that's how I feel.
Well, I can tell you, in the 32 years I've been here, there are ordinance provisions set up and state law provisions that they cut both ways. There's only certain things that the council and planning commission can do to stop development. There's a lot of things we can do to regulate and control development. And our ordinances, if you ask Bill and his development group, are pretty restrictive relative to a lot of other places in Spokane County as it relates to density, as it relates to roadway sizes, as it relates to all those kinds of things. The state would like us to take out that property out there and say, let's put in 3,000 and 4,000 square foot lots, where our ordinance is 10,000 square foot lots, because that's what the Planning Commission and Council put in place several years ago. Now we are going through a comprehensive plan amendment, and in the end of 2 or 3 years, maybe this council will be asked to make that smaller. I don't know. That could happen. But right now, if you ask him, our parcel sizes are huge compared to the rest of the county. And that controls the density. It helps with the roads and all those kind of things as it relates to development.
That's one development.
Oh, I know.
If you look at Seventh Day Adventist, it's like, are they putting mobile homes on there?
No, they're all single-family homes.
I know. They must be going up because they're
They're not terribly big, but yes.
We good?
Yeah.
Okay, anybody next?
Oh,
Hang on, go ahead.
Darold Wainwright. I live at the end of 11th Street, cul-de-sac that she was referring to. And I guess my question is, in annexing the property that's essentially right next to mine, between me and Cosmo, is there provisions in place or a plan in place for if those properties are sold to a developer, what restrictions there might be? Would there be similar lot sizes in place? And my other question would be, you mentioned the 11th Street would have to go through. Big reason why we live where we live is because it's a cul-de-sac and it's the edge of the city limits. If a street goes through there, that changes the dynamics of our neighborhood immensely, impacts our property value, impacts a lot of different things. Is there any say that we have in that, or any way that we can avoid having that street go through?
Well, the way the ordinance is set up, they're required to extend the road that's brought to the site. So that'll dictate how the development goes. Our ordinances would regulate relative to the roadway size, curb gutter, sidewalks, many things you guys don't have relative to what has to happen in the roadway. The lot sizes, the zoning would be the same. The 10,000 square foot lot, which is the same size, I think, as a bunch of that aren't additional. I don't know exactly. So those regulations basically were just, when it was looked at by the Planning Commission again years ago, they just rolled to that area to keep it all uniform so it is all the same. As growth happens, to quiet neighborhoods and trees change, without a doubt. You could be the developer and buy it to keep it the same way. I mean, that's always an option. But they, as in property owners, developers, they have that property right as well. As long as they meet the ordinance requirements. It's not to say when the subdivision would come to the Planning Commission and Council and be noticed by a public hearing, all that kind of stuff again, to bring other comments and concerns to that group at the time. And, the Planning Commission now, there's quite often where there will be conditions placed on subdividers on top of what the ordinance says, fencing, for example, side screen fencing or whatever else, or Shamrock Glen, instead of having Country Club Drive go straight to D Street, they were urged and encouraged to make cars have to turn and wander through the neighborhood, slow them down. So things like that is what comes up at that public hearing in front of the Planning Commission.
But I guess I'm kind of hearing you say that probably 11th Street would go through regardless of
the ordinance requires that. And quite honestly, the turnaround at the end of it, from if we ask the fire district from a standpoint of access and turnarounds, they'd probably like to see that go through from a better circulation. But if it didn't lay out correct however the property would lay out, to recall that. Those are the kind of comments we look at. I mean, I'm just saying what the ordinance says we're supposed to do.
Jason?
Roger, with that ordinance, is the ordinance alterable? Could they petition the Planning Commission and then bring it before the council so that it wouldn't go through?
I mean, there's sections in the municipal code that could be altered, and I'm telling you there probably will be sections that are altered. It's just that be careful on how you do those and see what benefits what, But yeah, those are the code can always be modified. The Planning Commission is going to have to look at several things within the subdivision ordinance, several things within the zoning ordinance after the comp plan's done, and then come to the council with a suggested ordinance to deal with those kinds of things. And so that may be one of them.
So if a developer comes in for those properties, let's assume they sell them to a developer, the time would be when they get the same kind of notice to then come to the Planning Commission, begin at the Planning Commission and ask the Planning Commission, make a motion.
About those kind of things and see what the development layout is. And we get, like I said, we send notices to the fire district. We may get something back from them and say, yes, it's great for fire protection. So the commission has to take all those kind of comments into play in making that decision and findings.
So just to be clear, it's not necessarily inevitable that it would go through.
No, it's just what the code says. Now, I'm not saying that the planning commission couldn't do a planning variance, is what it's called, to alter that or something like that, and it could happen. I mean, it could head north or something, something else, I don't know.
So I have a question. If that land is sold and you guys are going in front of the planning commission, are the neighbors going to be able to give feedback? Are we able to give input into our feelings on it?
Well, sure. Yeah, the planning commission public hearing process for a subdivision is very similar to this annexation. The notification boundary is 300 feet out from the edge of the land to be developed. And so that would carry further into Lanhart Addition, all the way over into Deer Park Meadows. And so, I mean, that's the notification boundary, and then signed in the newspaper and all those kind of places. And so there's requirements we have to do to notify people. In the subdivision world, the applicants spend the money for the signs and the mailings and stuff rather than the city. In the annexation world, we get to spend the money doing that stuff. Just the way it's set up.
Dale, did you have another question?
On the Schilling's land, you've got a 300-foot line that runs around there. What is that all about?
So,
On that map?
yeah, the Schillings have two 40-acre parcels. I hope I'm not going to confuse things here, but there's two 40-acre parcels. One 40-acre the north 40-acre parcel is outside the urban growth area boundary, so it can never be annexed in. The south 40-acre parcel where their house is inside the urban growth area boundary where it could be annexed in, but it's not part of this annexation. So there's two lines there. One's the urban growth area boundary line, one's the boundary of this annexation, so it's a little confusing, but they're not in this application. They're outside.
Can I ask, how many houses are going to be built south here on that down by the railroad track there on Crawford?
111 house lots.
111? Yeah. How many up at the Catholic Church?
76.
When does your part quit growing?
If our urban growth area boundary isn't expanded, and if we don't take if we're not required to take a bunch more population, okay, in theory, it could expand to that boundary. That's what the law is saying. It can't go past that. But I guess what I'm telling you, under state law requirements and what the legislature is doing to us, they want us to add 2 and 3 times the number of bodies per lot that we're building. Smaller densities, accessory dwelling units, apartment complexes, all those kinds of things. So just, this is my party and council meeting, but just be forewarned, that's what the state's trying to do to us.
Can you tell me any advantage I would have to being in the city, annexed in, other than for having to pay water and sewer and whatever else the city needs?
Well, I'm not sure which parcel yours is, but, you know, as growth happens, as the development happens, your parcel probably can be divided 3 or 4 times, 5 times, I'm not sure.
No.
But I'm just saying, that's the kind of advantage that your parcel would have. If you should sell someday, somebody that's looking at it could get maybe 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 lots out of buying your one lot. That's where the value is. It's not necessarily what you want to have, but I'm just saying that's the way you have to look at it.
The reason we moved to the country was to live in the country. We didn't have freedom. Nobody guilt right around us. That's what it's about. You guys don't realize that.
Oh, it's understood, I think.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm with Dell. I was reading an article today on Washington's annexation, and it said that property taxes will go up. It was no ands, if, or buts. It was a plain fact. But down below in that article, it said that there was a city in Washington where they did not raise the taxes. That was Walla Walla. So are they going to go up? And another thing, what kind of rules and regulations do the homeowners get because of this? What, or do we find out the day when the taxes are due?
There's nothing
And
to
what
do with
about
us.
the chickens and the horses and all that?
So taxes wise, what I can tell you is you pay one additional road tax than the city of Deer Park person does, in that you pay a road tax. Where inside the city limits, you wouldn't pay that. Taxes in Spokane County, my guess where you're at probably has the same values as a resident now does, from a standpoint of the school district assessment, the fire district assessment, the library district assessment, the state assessment, the county, everybody else. The city's assessment of that is the smallest pie, a piece of the pie almost. How the assessor does their thing is strictly the county assessor. I mean, and how the tax man after that is strictly them.
I'm going by just by that sentence.
Yeah,
It says it
I don't know.
will go up.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay,
And Diane.
Gary Corbin, I live on 1037 High Desert. You keep referring to 10,000 square foot lot. It sticks in my mind when I looked at the area north of 12 up by the golf course. Some of those lots were as small as 6,000.
On High Desert Drive?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different zoning.
Different zoning. Okay.
Yeah, but this zoning for this whole parcel is the same as south of 12th Street, and then over to Linhart Addition. So
Okay,
it's a higher density zoning up there.
Okay.
Diane.
Just have one question, Roger. I live up in Deer Park Meadows, and they're supposed to extend out onto Short Road. When are they gonna do that?
Well, that, I don't know. That's Deer Park Meadows Division 4. They had, the owner of that division, well, I think he's still the owner of the division, had it sold to a different developer to do that infrastructure work out, and then my understanding that fell through. So I'm not 100% sure when that current developer will continue on with that next phase. That last phase is about 32 lots, 33 lots, something like that. So we have not heard anything for a while.
So they won't do those two extensions out to Short?
They will as part of the subdivision. Yeah,
Until those 32 lots are developed?
correct. Because see, it's one big parcel. Nobody owns it but that one person, so they can't blast the road across there. That's just one or two big parcels is all it is.
Sir?
Yeah, hi, Joe Nato. I'm 314 East 11th. A few of us neighbors here in the cul-de-sac. Just to echo some of the comments that Darold Wainwright made concerning, we're a cul-de-sac. We walk to these places because it's a cul-de-sac. And what I understand from what Roger said is ordinance that the road goes through. I just wanted to confirm what I heard from Jason was that there is potentially options to maybe affect that ordinance to prevent a road from going through. I just want to make sure I understood that correctly.
Well, there's two options. One might be to get the ordinance amended that didn't require road extensions through, but that could be a slippery slope both ways as far as how other areas might be looked at. And then the other one is the planning commission. Typically, it's the developer that asks for a plating variance to do something different, but it's not that the planning commission in that review process couldn't evaluate it, ask for additional study, and perhaps issue themselves a plating variance or a condition or make a finding that isn't the best option, and then maybe not have it go through. So that's the public process of the planning commission. Way back when the subdivision plat might show up if somebody buys it to do that. I mean, there's a lot of ifs to get there, but that's the steps that could happen.
Yeah, and ostensibly our concern is, noise, traffic going through our place, and is there the option of potentially putting in a mandated green space there instead of a road? Is that a possibility? obviously we would like to see our area protected. We want the land.
Yeah, I mean,
Because of that.
my guess is usually the green spaces or park areas are on developers with lots bigger parcels than how that might impact that. It really would depend upon, say, one person bought all the land on that side of the road. That might be a better chance than one person owns a single lot right there. You know, it really depends upon how it lays out. May not be economically feasible to do anything there, you know, from a standpoint of extension. You just have to see what the economics of the time are.
Yeah, the other thing I'd like to echo, I appreciate the comments about growth and rate of growth and all that sort of thing. I have the same concerns. I hear that frequently amongst conversation in our community. How big are we really going to grow? Have we ever done kind of survey of Deer Park and said, hey, how much do we want to grow? What's your feeling about that?
Yeah, it was done in the original comprehensive plan that Plan Commission and Council did with the development of urban growth area boundaries and the population allocation of the county and all those kinds of things. We are just now getting ready, actually the consultant we've hired to work on our next comprehensive plan update. We're working on the analysis, the questions that go out as a community questionnaire relative to things like that. It's going to be an interesting time because ultimately what's going to have to happen to stop growth is to tell the county, no, keep your population and move it somewhere else. And there's requirements under the state law that we all share and share alike. So it's going to be an interesting conversation as growth happens in our state, in our area. And in our county specifically, how that's going to happen.
We're mandated to grow? Is that what you're saying?
You're mandated to take a percentage of the population that comes to the county. And it's a formula that comes out of the state based on population. So the county themselves will be going through they have a committee working on population allocation. It's a subcommittee of the planning, it's a subcommittee within the county. Working on the population allocation methodology, who gets what, how many maximum people they could get. A lot of communities are looking to see if they want more they can get is a revenue thing as well. So I haven't heard of many saying we won't take any, but that could be something that comes up.
Thank you. One last question. So how do we affect the county what's the mechanism? I'm stupid. I don't know what the mechanism is.
So there's a committee called the Planning Technical Advisory Committee that is made up of planning members from the cities and towns in the county that are advisory to a committee that is one member of elected officials from all the different towns, 3 commissioners, 3 city council, 3 from the valley. Anyway, it gets everybody in. It's called Spokane County Steering Committee. They are the body that, when this planning technical committee gets done and with the reports goes to them, that body is kind of the mediary body to try and make these ultimate decisions, and ultimately then gets recommended to the Board of County Commissioners for adoption. So, become a county commissioner? Your best option. Thank you. I mean, it's pretty hard. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of planning efforts going on, and then we get all these new state regulations that have came down that is going to try and force our community to accept way higher densities than we're all ready for. And how that comes out of our planning committee, our comprehensive plan, is going to be important. I don't know where it's going to go. It's dependent upon this community survey stuff. And then willing to buck the trend at the county and state level, honestly.
Yeah. What's the plan to get traffic out of that development out there by the railroad track? How are they going to get out of town?
They go H and the roundabout now.
Yeah, and how are you going to pull out from that stop sign on H in rush hour?
Well, you know, that intersection at H in Colville is actually doing its job in that until a few years ago we didn't even have that crossing. Everything went down the main crossing. So it's really doing its job as far as picking off cars from downtown. You know, I'm not saying someday it doesn't turn into a 3-way stop. that might be the option there. Typically, you do a traffic study to come up with that before you just do it.
I just wondered if they did anything when they were gonna put that development in, did they do any traffic analysis?
Yeah.
You got 111 you said.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of cars.
Yeah, you know, and I know this is kind of weird, but with all the traffic we're having, and we're all seeing that, I mean, you see it, they're pulling on Crawford, everything else. We have, the study we just did at Main and Crawford, it takes more traffic to drop it down to a level service F. F is failing in the world of traffic rating, so A is good. It takes more time still to sit and wait before it gets to there at that intersection. And we know it's an issue, it's one we got to deal with, but traffic's bad, but it's bad enough. It'll get there.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, we'll close the public hearing and go back to the council meeting. Next up, item 8, new business. Letter A, annexation request 2022-1 Lakeside. Roger, do you want to just go on a little bit on?
Yeah, so I guess let me go over the staff report that you guys all have and all the attachments that are in here. It's a big parcel of land, 167 acres is what all the area includes. Some of those that were part of the original annexation petition, the 10% petition, and then some of those that were added by the council and makes up that 167 acres. Give you a timeline, you know, that August 19th is when the 10% petition came in, so we're a little bit over a year. And the council accepted that, went to the next step and said, okay, now they have to go through and do the 60% petition. That started September 26th of 2022, and on June 12th, 2023, that came back. And with it, there were some signatures that were not on the petition that are folks that they have water agreements, and then one map that you have with the blue parcels crosshatched, those are ones we have water agreements with. And in those water agreements, there's no protest annexation clauses in there. And so as part of it, the mayor, we sent a letter out to those people from the mayor, because I know Bill and his group tried hard to get those folks to sign, and he couldn't get them to sign. So Tim sent those letters out on June 15th is when they went out. June 30th is when Tim signed the petition. So then it came back to you for scheduling this public hearing, and that's why we're here now. So that's kind of the timing. We have like I said, lots of attachments that are in here. If you go back to the, it's past the 60% petition. I mean, the map, it's unfortunate when the copier makes copies of the maps and so forth, it gets darker and darker. But, you know, the blue line is the boundary of what we're talking about here for this annexation. You can see where 11th Street that we talked about comes out at parcel number 9054. That's where that street stubs to the edge of the property now. Stubbed there back in the day of the subdivision of Linhart Addition. So anyway, it just goes to that line. That was where the county line was. Gives you an idea what the zoning map is. Let's see, what else? Copy the letter, copy the petition with the signatures of those in support. And then the last one I'll bring up is there's a evaluation one in here for signature purposes. So for the petition to go forth, even to this stage, it had to have 60%, this is under state law, 60% of the assessed value of land as in favor of the petition, signing the petition of support. So we're at 81%. So that is well above the 60 that's required to get it to this stage. So back to so I'm sorry, there's a lot of paper there, lots for you to read. But ultimately, should you select to go forth, the direction would be for staff to have a annexation ordinance prepared similar to this Mark Skokowitz annexation from before. Chuck would do that, and then that would come back to you for our typical ordinance three-reading process unless you decide to waive two of the readings and move it through in one time. So that's what I can tell you. Hopefully I've answered at least the questions they've asked for you. If there's any others, I'd be more than happy to try. I mean, I'm not saying there are all the answers everyone wants to hear. It's just what the ordinance says and where the development regulations are. And quite honestly, where our forefathers in putting the planning commission, the comprehensive plan together prior to the comprehensive plan with the urban growth area boundaries and all that kind of stuff foresaw or put together. And so this has been going down this path, I would say, since probably 93 or 4, when the comprehensive plan process under growth management was put in front of us and what we had to do.
I had a question. And it goes back to Jim's comment at the beginning of the public hearing and then Bill's response. Jim, thank you for the numbers on the specific quotes that you had. That was really helpful. In the conversation, I couldn't quite tell if Lakeside was promising to cover all of those different costs or if it was certain parts, some of the connection costs. Could you speak to that, Bill?
Municipal sewer.
Okay.
So the sewer connection piece.
So not some of the other work that would have to be done to actually make that work.
So, okay.
Thank you. I didn't want to overestimate how much.
Yeah, so basically the sewer connection cost is $34.87.
Okay.
The water
$987.
$987, and the meter for
$720.
so around $5,000 round numbers are the connection fee portions for water and sewer. Now, the deals they make with them, that's on them, obviously,
Right.
but that's the cost for a typical house construction for a 3/4 inch water meter.
Okay. Thank you. That was my main question.
Okay, good.
And Bill, you've made that offer to all of those landowners?
So we've reached out with several letters, we've had individual small groups that help out. And you have seen that offer, we've got signatures. For the ones that either haven't returned the signature or haven't responded at all, the offer stands.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We need a motion.
If you want, a motion direct staff to prepare the annexation ordinance for the next council, or I'm not sure it'll be the next, it'll depend upon when Chuck puts it together, but that's the next step in the process as required under state law, is an annexation ordinance come to you to approve or not. I think there's nothing to say that says you couldn't stop it here if you wanted to, but that's the steps.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second that.
Hopefully it's
To direct staff to produce the annexation ordinance.
Okay. Jason, how do you vote?
Yes.
Dee, how do you vote?
Yes.
Heather, how do you vote?
Yes.
Caleb?
Yes.
Naomi?
Yes.
Okay. Motion passed. Okay. Next up, item B, Water Comprehensive Plan Adoption, Water Use Efficiency Goal Setting.
So I really didn't set this meeting out to be.
This is all you.
Just time. I'm just trying to get projects wrapped up. And so tonight, for this item, you have a memo from me and you have it's the executive summary of what's in the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan document, Sam's here, he's a drafter. I think it's 837 or 873 pages.
You have all the things.
Yes, with all the appendices, it's giant, okay? The appendices are ridiculous, but it's the stuff that Department of Health likes to read, I guess. So I know you didn't want to see that. So in the steps of this, there's two things we have to accomplish tonight. One is the setting the water use efficiency goal, and it is a goal. I don't know, there's a goal piece out there should we fail to hit it, which we did one time in this chart you'll see in this memo. And then the other one is to approve the comprehensive plan. We need these things in place so that then the final environmental policy document can be drafted it has its own 15-day public hearing or public review process, gets inserted in the plan, and this action on this water use efficiency goal so that we can send this to the state for final approval. This document is what we use for the water infrastructure side of the city relative to water supply, water rights, water reservoirs, stations, all those kinds of things. And Clint, who's sitting here right now, he's now the water and sewer manager. He'll get to use this document to help guide the city into the future. From the water use efficiency side, there's a lot of numbers here on this memo I provided to you and a lot of things that go along with it. But basically, we first did this in 2008. We had to establish a goal with that comprehensive plan cycle. And it was set up as residential, it's based on residential consumption at 430 gallons per connection per day on an average annual basis. So that's for the year. I can tell you that in the summertime, people are way over that because the water's going on the ground for grass. And in the wintertime, it's way under that they're not scratching the surface for that much water. I think Jason, you said earlier today, 6,000 gallons or 9,000 gallons in the winter.
We use between 6 and 7 in the winter.
Yeah, so it's down to a couple hundred gallons a day. I mean, so our water use that we have here typically peaks for about 3 months. Right. But we have to size everything based on that 3 months as it relates to pumps and tanks and all that stuff capacity-wise. So I'm going to go back and forth between the comp plan and this water use goal. So anyway, in 2016, we had a comp plan cycle come through, and we basically reinitiated that same goal. And then as you look at from 2017, 18, 19, 20, all the way through, 430, less than 430 gallons was achieved all but what year? The 2021 drought year. But again, as a goal, purely as a goal, not that Heart Health believes this, but the goal isn't achieved every time. Otherwise, it's all goal. Right? So anyway, you can see where we've been. I'm not sure where this year's going to be. We'll know at the end of the season. I know from a water use standpoint, we're probably on par with 2022. We're not with 2021. And you can kind of see that on one of these charts here where the flows in the comprehensive plan stuff where the water demands have been. So anyway, I guess if there's questions that you have within it, what I can tell you from an infrastructure standpoint is water rights, we're in great shape for the planning period, which is 20 to 25 to 30 years out there. But as you know, there's other water rights we're trying to deal with, and because we're going to be here longer in 20, 25 years, so we really need to look further out, okay? So we'll see where that goes. Glen was involved in some of the discussions with that one already, and we'll just see over time how that one goes. Our first big hurdle probably is more sources to come out of the ground. And as it relates to PFAS and stuff like that, we'll see where that all goes too. That may throw a whole different wrench into the thing, but there probably is a need for more sources sooner than later. I'd love to tell you we'll get to the end of capital projects someday and rates and revenues and costs, and I don't see that because after more sources is next is storage, and you almost can trade those back and forth. When we did the 6th Street Reservoir, the full intention was that standpipe comes down. Now, Dan's role will be to maybe take a look at that for some consulting help. Maybe it might make more sense to spend a bunch of money to refurbish what we have. The unfortunate thing is you only get to count the top third of the tank. You still don't get to count the bottom 2/3 as it relates to water volume. So I don't know which way that's going to go. But there's some issues as it relates to water storage that we're going to have in the not too far out term. Okay. So that's what a lot of this other and stuff in the executive summary talks about. We have maps and we have drawings. We have all those kinds of things. That's in a big comp plan. Once we get that back, you're more than welcome to come in and look at that if you really want to. But that's where that. So the two things, hopefully, would be to, after questions if there is any, to confirm the goal, and approve the draft water comprehensive plan, which allows us to continue on through the process and get it adopted by the state. Question. I'm trying to help.
I had two questions. One, just as I was reading through it, I want to make sure I understood. It looks like at our peak, we're using about 72% of our instantaneous usage. Is that how much we can pump out?
As it relates to the water rate.
Okay, relates. And then we're using around 53% annually.
Correct.
Okay. And then as I looked at the projected budgets for the future, it makes sense that they're not including the grants that we may or may not receive. But I was having a hard time matching the expenses and revenues up to see, to get just a general sense of, will this enterprise fund, are we close to on track for it to self-fund these projects? Or are we nowhere close? Or I couldn't get a general sense of the funding.
Yeah, you won't see it in that. In this other spreadsheet that I do as the part of the budget season. Close.
Okay.
So the Cedar Reservoir is paid off, I think 27. I don't have that for sure in my head, but 26, 27. That payment's $250,000 a year, whatever. That was paid off a loan. More than likely, that'll be revenue that would have to go towards another loan in the future, honestly, to make it work. We've been able to do sources or wells with smaller grant dollars funded by block grant and some of those others that currently they're available to us as our income ratio still qualifies to meet the block grant consortium requirements. We're right at the cusp though, so I'm not gonna tell you that's gonna last forever. The revenue streams from rates and connections and things like that are gonna help towards that. More than likely, we're always gonna be paying back loans in order to keep up.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, close is that was as close as an answer I was looking for on that one.
I would say that our practice of 1% and 2% rate increases per year has helped us build up at as slow as pain as possible to get to the revenue streams to make these payments. The 6th Street Reservoir is the first payment was last year, and so we're paying on that as well. So that's another 20-year note out there. So.
I just appreciate it. As first half of the document, I kept thinking, where's the timeline? Where's the chart? And that was the last couple of pages. So thank you guys for having all that information in there.
Any question? Dee, go ahead.
I just was curious. You want two separate motions?
Yes, I think that would be wise.
Okay, I move approval of the water comprehensive plan adoption.
Okay, hang on. We need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. Go ahead.
Okay, and another motion to approve the water use efficiency goal setting.
Probably need to vote on
Hang on.
motion.
I need a second.
Well, we already had a motion in a second. We probably need to vote on that first one before we entertain another motion.
No, fine. We can go with that and then do the first one, then do the second one.
I'll second.
Okay.
So, water comprehensive plan, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Water use efficiency goal setting plan. How do you vote?
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, next up, item C, task order 2023-09, Mountainview Meadows, Phase 2 Construction Observation, JUB Incorporated Engineers. Roger.
So, so this is for I gotta remember, Mountainview Meadows. So this is for the second phase of Mountainview Meadows. This would be the extension from on High Desert Drive from the end of their first phase, which is just off of 12, another about halfway to Enoch Road. And this would, well, I don't think this includes the sewer lift station. That, it depends on how they're built, if they're done at the same time or all that works. So we may see another one in the future for the lift station portion of this. But this would encompass that section of improvements to get the second phase of Mountainview Meadows in. They have deposited those funds with us. We actually have a pre-construction meeting coming Monday or Tuesday, and they're going to try to do some of the work. No, they're not doing any of the work this fall. They're doing all their work in the springtime. They're a little ahead of themselves, but that's okay. They want to get this in on the docket.
I would like to make a motion to approve the task order 2023-09.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Heather?
Aye.
Motion carried. Item D, task order 2023-14, Shamrock Glen 4th edition observation, JUB Engineers Incorporated. Roger.
So this is another one to Shamrock, which is up there by Crawford and Weber and grade school and Bob Mart up in that area. This is it's actually their 5th area of development, but their 4th addition to the original. This again is another one that they have 2 more additions after this that will actually make the connection on the Crawford Avenue. This one doesn't do that. The next one after this one will. This one, the deposit has been paid as well. Their plan is to get started this fall and get some of the infrastructure in, and then go away and come back in the spring. And so we just need your approval for it.
Motion to approve task order 2023-14.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carried. Item E, Crawford Avenue, Main Street intersection study.
Okay, this is the last one, I promise.
Well, Lane's here.
Well, he didn't do this. This is the last one forever. Okay, in fact. It's interesting. Where this came from is way back in a discussion of development around the Crawford, Weber, that whole area there. Developers long before Shamrock came in asked us about development up there. And even way back then, their traffic studies looked at roads, as we've always made them do. And at that point, even DOT was involved in seeing how the highway may be impacted. But what came out of it was, okay, Weber and Crawford's a bad intersection, Caldwell and Crawford, and so forth, down the line, and the highway. They went away. There was just too much for them. But what they did do on their way out is they asked the council, it didn't seem fair that a developer coming in would pay the entire cost of several intersections that were already operating at bad levels of service. And so if you remember Weber and Crawford, for those that were here, it was Crawford went straight through, 25-mile-an-hour posted, that wasn't the speed, and two-way stop with a crosswalk that wasn't paid attention to. So it was not a good intersection at all. Caldwell and Crawford was coming, Main and Crawford, so all these intersections. And so the council in 2002 2001 had us do a study of these intersections and so forth. And what came out of it was a traffic mitigation ordinance and fee that we collect on every new residential building permit and or every new subdivision as it's platted. We collect so much per parcel. Well, what that's done is it's allowed us to improve Crawford and Weber with the roundabout, Crawford and Caldwell with the roundabout, Main and H with a roundabout, to try and move traffic through those areas better and further as time has went. Well, where we're at is the 4th intersection of that was Crawford and Main. And the completion of H Street several years ago took lots of cars off of Crawford and Main. And you're hearing people, having issues with the stop sign at Crawford at Caldwell and H. That may be something that has to be dealt with in the future, without a doubt. But as cars happened through, this traffic mitigation dollars was left to only work on this one intersection. Okay, it's all the only place, because the original ordinance and the study was based on those four. So what we asked JEB to do is take a look, make these counts. Hopefully you all had a chance to read through it and so forth. And there's some options in there that need to be discussed. Now, this is not a document to be dealt with tonight by any sense of imagination. Brad and Dan will be back to you next year to talk through, okay, we have this study, here's what it says, and discuss what options we may want to think we want to do. It's anywhere, well, obviously a roundabout's out. If you look at the attachments back there, how it took out so much profit, that's not an option. Traffic signal may be an option, but it has its own problems as it relates to trucks to maintain the things and certifications, and because there's no lights around us really. I mean, the one on the highway at Riverside is the closest, and whether we could even have a contract with the state, probably not. But so there's issues if you have your own traffic light and the technologies and so forth. And then there's these roadway improvements that might not be such a bad idea on A Street, but you just need to look at them, and then later as a group sit down and really kind of chew through which way you want to go, because the way the traffic mitigation funding works is as the money comes in, there's a 6-year window before it has to be spent out or it gets returned. So you can't hold it forever and ever and ever. And the latest money in is 2020, I think it is. So it's a couple of years that we've had the money in, the oldest money in there, so to speak. But, your options could be doing a real cost analysis feasibility study for that roadway section and impacts. Because when you take a Street, that's the one that's 22 feet wide, and make it 40 feet wide with curbs and gutters, sidewalks and stuff, there are some impacts to what that all looks like through there. But anyway, that's what the study is saying, what it's done. The revenues are there to do some more design work for you. Funding is going to be a challenge in that it's not a federal aid route, so it's not available for state funds necessarily, unless there's some other sugar daddies out there that'll drop some dollars this way. And maybe one funded by us, and maybe one funded over time. Once North Colville's done, we're transferring funds from the general fund to help pay for that. Perhaps that funding that can then go to the 8th Street and deal with it. We have some time, but that's relative as traffic gets forced down there through that 4-way stop, and we've all seen it in delays and all that kind of stuff. So that's what this is. Questions? Please look at it, put it on the agenda.
Yeah. I have a question. What about a one-way street, one-way section? One-way traffic, say from...
On what?
Crawford, going east or west, be one way, and coming down A Street would be the other way. And then so up to Colville. Just a thought.
Yeah. If you mess with federal aid routes, which Crawford Avenue is, changing the traffic to a one-way street, we have to go through and get approval from MarSTOT and others to do that, because it was paid for with federal dollars to look like it does. Okay. I'm not saying it's not possible, and especially if you altered traffic so that you had opposing streets that way. But it's just steps that have to be done because it was their dollars that paid for it.
This is just...
Yeah, no, I know. A Street used to be a one-way, but I don't know that that's what's being... One of the things that was looked at in here is if we could pick off cars that are going through the intersection now and either heading up to the roundabout on Crawford or heading to Main and go over to Colville on a widened street, perhaps the intersection gets some of its traffic alleviated. That was the goal of what it was looked at. So, and I think people are already doing that. Honestly, if you're coming down on Main Street towards the roundabout, you cross the tracks and the cars are backed up to that intersection, I'm thinking people are going by the post office already.
And today you don't have a choice.
Well, right now you don't have a choice. But I mean, I think people adjust and find the easiest routes quite often, whether it's a detour or whether it's a traffic obstruction in front of you or whatever else. That's just what people do. And so it may be improving something that people are already doing and helping the situation of Main and Crawford. That was the look.
I did have a question about what's going on there now.
Secret.
You
don't want to
underground tunnel.
Yeah, it was an underground tunnel.
So, one of my guys was riding his bike by there and saw a hole in the asphalt. So he stopped and looked and stuck his arm down, and there was a hole over the streets, kind of over to the side.
Yeah, so
we dug it up, and what it ended up being is the city was using it for a storm drain, for storm water. But what it originally was the flume system that brought the water from Loon Lake to the apple orchard here. So you figure that pipe was probably 113 years oldish, and it just concrete has a shelf life, and it collapsed onto the asphalt. But the asphalt, the road section is built so well there, it just stood up to it. But so what we did is there were two structures, one at each end. We removed the cement pipe and we replaced it with a PVC pipe. So plastic, which the rest of that storm system, 2010, on Main, that's what I mean. Where it connects to was already replaced in that same kind of pipe. So we just replaced another section and then put it back together. It'll be finished tomorrow afternoon.
Have we issued any sort of press release or anything describing what happened and what actions were taken? That's a great story and a compliment to our road builders.
We didn't. I mean, I know you talked to people around. Yeah, I went around and talked to all the businesses. Called the owners of the building and all of that.
Yeah. I actually contacted Mike Ryder with the Clayton Historical Society to get copies of the old Flume story again. I got copies of that for both Dan and Brad. It'd been nice maybe to have that before we had to do the work, but it's a neat story of pictures, and I don't know if anybody went down there from the historical site and took a look at what was collapsed in there, but
you couldn't really see anything.
Yeah.
It's full of food. Yeah. But when Adam was digging, we found it was more expensive than even we originally thought. It was either the group, Exapros Excavating did it. They did it. They started Monday and they're ready for payment tomorrow.
Okay. Good. Yeah, it was kind of a secret deal.
It was pretty hard to hide.
Yes, it was. All right, item 11, consent agenda. Letter A, approval of voucher claim check numbers 41,379 through 41,430, including EFT debits in the amount of $433,953.82 for the second half of August 2023. And item B is approval of voucher claim check numbers 41,431 through 41,457 in the amount of $1,362,008.59 for the first half of September 2023. And item C, final plat approval, file LP 2020-1, M Alliance, previously Deltings.
Motion to approve.
Okay. Second. We have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carried. Item 12, report of departments. Jake, we'll start with you.
Well, in light of this being Roger's last council meeting with us, and you'd asked me to go through the permit totals, I figured I'd start from the first year that I arrived here to show you the kind of progression that we've done to 2023. In 2021, there were a total of 184 permits. 37 of them were single-family residences. 12 were duplexes or two-family, and there were 4 multifamily. In 2022, we had 190 permits, 66 being single-family residences, 3 being two-family and 16 being multifamily. And in 2023, we're at 212 permits as of today, with 96 single-family residences, 11 duplexes, and 31 multifamily units. So the cruise ship, I'll use the cruise ship analogy, all the people are on board and the engines are just ready to start, and they're wanting to get out to sea immediately for 2 reasons. One is winter is coming, is their part. They want to get foundations in. And the other reason they're in such a rush is, which was now been moved out to March, was a new energy code and code update.
Yeah.
So everybody's trying scrambling to get in front of that. So luckily the energy code and the code updates has now been postponed March 15th. Maybe beyond that, we don't know. That was a big force, driving force for that. I mean, in the last month, over half of those permits have hit my desk to be processed. So luckily the new system, we were able to handle that.
How's your new system?
Yeah.
Yes.
With the new system, we were able to handle that easily. So we're still working through the little bugs with some of that, but I don't know if you dealt with that, Bill, or heard anything, but maybe you got a good, yeah.
The first one I heard from.
Okay.
Postponed it, so that's good news.
Yeah, March 15th. It's not what it's been moved out to. Yeah. So, as you can tell, I mean, I'm glad most people left. That would have been a little salt on the wound, I think, for a lot of them. That's where we're at with the building department.
Okay. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you, Jake.
Daryl.
We did the final walkthrough on the sewer yesterday. Developed I'm not a sewer expert. Roger could probably tell you better, but it seemed to me like it was a fairly small punch list of things to take care of. I will say from my standpoint, I know Debbie, Roger, and JUB had to work a lot closer with the contractors, but from my standpoint, it's one of the better contractors we've worked with out at the airport in the last few years as far as following airport requirements, getting things done, and just working with us in general. Probably should see the final pay apps and the second change order within the next couple of meetings. A lot of the change orders had to deal with a lot of old
hidden treasures,
surprises that they dealt with. As far as fire season goes, I think today pretty much nailed it. As of today, we still had 5 airplanes out there, but I would imagine the next couple of days we'll see them wean off and go away. And we're starting to get ready for snow plowing out there. And I'd like to take this time to thank Roger for all of his support and help training me and working with me. It's been a pleasure. So thank you.
Let me add to his. He mentioned the contractor, and not always do we get ones that know anything about airports as it relates to all the requirements and stuff. And I agree with you; they were really good that way. This change order you're going to see, there's a map included because we had to get EDA approval. It'll be at the next council meeting. It's in the drawer, but didn't make it in time. But it's for like $75,000, and it's a delayed change order because you'll look at this map. Now it's small. It's 8.5 by 11 of all the project area, and there's multiple colors on there regarding power and live power, old power, phone, old water. Things you just wouldn't believe. Wires that the Vista guys didn't even know what they were. They were so old and found. And when you're digging 20 feet, 11, between 11 and 20 feet all the time, it's a menagerie. You don't go very fast anyway, and you got to drag your dig boxes through there. And some cables they had to keep live, and some they had to repair. And so anyway, there's a change coming your way that just look at the map and you'll understand why it took so long. And they were only, 2 weeks behind maybe?
Yeah.
I mean, they really did a pretty good job. So anyway, that's it for that.
Brett.
The playground equipment, it's all finished up Country Club Drive, finished it. They pulled down the barricades, finally got the bark. All that's totally done. So the pavement preservation, we're all done. Well, close to done. They have a little bit of cleanup work to do. Glen did it. They did an outstanding job. Moved in. They basically did it in 1 week, which is like unheard of. that just everything fell into line right like it should, and they did an outstanding job. Pavement looks great. So super happy with that, and they recovered the storm drain. So, and then the crews out, we rented a crack sealing machine. So we're out doing a little pavement preservation of our own, trying to seal everything out. So, that's what we're doing.
Did you have a chance to get any bids on that post and chain?
I did, actually.
Should we sit down? Or I guess we're sitting.
You want it right now, or do you want it?
I was just curious.
Yeah, budget time. Yeah, budget.
Okay.
Budget time.
I have everything.
Okay.
For you.
Clint, you're up.
Okay, on the wastewater side, we're all done irrigating for the season. We're still on our storage lagoons now.
You're filling my pool by my house.
Mm-hmm. It'll be a while for that one.
So those will be going until spring. On the water side, the demand is kind of tapered off, so some of that additional stress has been taken off the wells. So that's a good or a bad thing, depending on how you want to look at it, but it's a good thing overall. Other than that, we're just keeping up with all the compliance, sampling, and testing surrounding both those areas. So,
Yeah, we got notified, it was email from the group, the environmental group that we're signed up with, and thankfully I forwarded to Clint, and he's got a list of things that they're asked for, and I'm not sure if you ever got a hold about the timing of when it'll have to be.
Not yet, but we'll work on it.
Yeah, so things are moving along that way. They have, it was the initial proposed settlement that's under review or something, not with us, but I mean with the whole consortium and stuff. And so just processing through, but since that time, I've been contacted twice by the spokesman. I don't know if you had any phone calls. Well, he took care of one today from a citizen because the information's out there, and so people are wondering.
You're up now. This is your last one. Make it good.
Well, I don't have nothing to say. I'm out. Dan Pratt is the new person. We hired him 2 weeks ago, stole him from Pasco. He's been here for the 2 weeks going over the menagerie stuff we get to do, or that I get to do, or that he's going to get to do. He'll be geared up with all the projects that we're doing, and then all the subdivision projects that we have the consultants reviewing and doing and so forth. So it will be busy. It'll be a switch. I mean, I see these 3-4 people more are going to have to do things and tag team together and develop these communication routes and maybe sign off sheets or whatever it's going to take. I mean, because it's not going to be the same. I mean, things have changed. And so, but Dan is the new guy, and I think he'll be a great fit. And from my end, I'm not leaving the town, so I'll be around. I understand all these people, their comments as it relates to, and I implore you to pay attention to what the state is wanting to do relative to accessory dwelling units and more apartments and all those kinds of things, because that will change the community way more than a subdivision will with 10,000 square foot lots. And the other one is, as you read the water rights issue and the water usage and so forth, the thing you have to, in that executive summary, it talks about how many more equivalent residential units, and that's a term that the Department of Health uses to count capacity and all that kind of stuff, but it's in there and talks about it. So I pretend that's a house. So if we get in a situation where we take houses and make 2 houses or 4 houses out of a spot that has 1 house, that does impact more lots and more growth. And so just beware of that as time goes, and the comp plan has the guidance in there. Department of Health may not like all the things we say or agree to. I can tell you the steering committee and the county may not like all the things that our comp plan may say and do as it relates to that, but that's our chance to establish our path into the future, both from a planning effort and an ordinance effort. So I implore you to be involved.
You done?
I'm done.
Are you signing off?
Signing off.
Okay, council questions, comments, or reports? Jason, we'll start with you. D.
I'm good.
Yeah, I have nothing. Thank you.
Heather?
I have nothing.
Caleb?
We're just going to mention to all the folks that were here earlier to comment, to thank them for their comments. I think they're gone now. And to encourage them to continue to comment throughout the ordinance process. They may not realize that they have more opportunities to speak, but it was helpful to hear from them.
Yeah, it's our opinions. Ma'am?
Nothing, thank you.
Not for me.
What's that?
Nothing for me.
I would personally like to thank you for the 30-plus years of service you've done. You've been a remarkable individual. If we could clone you, we would do that. If we'd get rid of Dan and Jake. I'm kidding. But yes, thank you so much. We have a couple things for you, but they didn't come in yet. So you're going to have to wait till next week.
I'll still be here.
Okay. But again, thank you for your years of service.
You bet. Been fun. I can't believe it's been 32 years. But
That's true. That's true. Any regrets?
no, the story I've told several. I remember I arrived here December 1st of 2019 or 1991 on this job, and the second day on the job, our city engineer at the time walks in with this big document. And it's my water comp plan that I wasn't hired to do anything in the water world. It was building and planning. And the mayor comes in and says, oh, yeah, you got to be certified now in water as well. And so these things have just grown over time. And I don't know if it's good or bad otherwise, but taking what I did with the job description I had is I just started slicing away. And that's why we have the 4 here to do this job. And things came just because no one else would do it. The sewer plant responsibility came because the guy retired and we had nobody else. So we had to run the sewer plant. And so it's just one of those weird things that when small towns, we had a small staff and then we all bucked up and did it. Had lots of help from all the guys that have been there all these years. And so it's not just me. So I really appreciate the time and effort.
You learned a hell of a lot too, didn't you?
Well, yeah, a few things. I'll pass them on.
Okay. We're adjourned. Thank you all.